Coco Moon is the seventh studio album, masterminded by electronica artist Adam Young. So I've been a huge fan of Adam's for a very long time at this point, and I've always really appreciated that ingenuity with songwriting and lyrical style that he's always brought to the forefront. Since his second studio album, Ocean Eyes, Adam has been in and out of the public eye. Now, I'm sure I'm going to go into depth about those older albums of his at some point, but for right now, I just want to go talk about Coco Moon and how it relates to those older works. There very much is a old Owl City sound ending with Ultraviolet, and then new sound starting with Mobile Orchestra. And it really has been interesting to see how Adam has evolved over time, although I do feel a lot of the choices he's made in the later releases have been questionable at best. But let's jump into Coco Moon, take it track by track, and really dissect what I'm feeling about each of them. Adam Check Please is a pretty wonderful start to this album, with all of those time signature mix-ups that really spice up the listening experience and make you want more after the song is done. And there are some universals throughout this whole album, and really throughout his whole discography, that I have to put a disclaimer about, which is Adam's voice is almost always great, and his production is almost always very, very good. And of course with Adam Check Please, these two principles are no exception here. One could levy the criticism that it's a little clean and too polished. I can see that, but I really enjoy that sort of sound, that spick and span nature, because I feel it really complements Adam's voice and the style of music that he writes. But right off the bat, we're starting with some lyrics that feel pedantic, even if they are coming from an honest place. In Adam Check Please, he's talking about his first job working at a grocery store, and that's all fine and good, but it really sets the imagery of the album off to a rocky start by really limiting the scope of what Adam is willing to talk about. And I like to contrast the imagery of this first song on the album to the first song on All Things Bright and Beautiful, The Real World.
Can you feel a silk embrace in the satin air? If we dissolve without a trace, would the real world even care?
The Real World has Adam tying physical sensations to the growing disillusionment of the mundanity of reality that's surrounding him. Now, contrast that with Adam Check Please, which is an exaltation of those exact things that Adam was once very critical of. So we have Adam Check Please, which I find to have problems, but generally you start off on a pretty good mark. But we're going down pretty soon after this, with Under the Circus Lights. Under the Circus Lights starts a really bad habit of this album in general, where almost every other song has tacked on key changes, which don't add anything, don't really move the song in any particular direction. It's only there to have the faux representation of evolution within the songwriting structure, which there isn't any. I'm sorry, Adam. And once again, this song showcases this very dry and literal lyrical style that really doesn't move me at all, which I hope that's the point of the songs he's trying to write. You know, being mesmerized by the lady trapezing through the air at the circus. You know, that could be something interesting. But once again, I think that instead of talking about that thing and just describing how mesmerized you were, try and make something more out of those sensations. Try and write a song that's a little more poetic, trying to hold on to those feelings, but make it a larger scale. And I just have to throw this out here. Announcer Adam makes me cringe. I hate it. Don't do that again, Adam. Please, for the love of God. So we're only on the second track, and already I'm wondering, where has the magic gone? And before I move on to the next song, I want to say that this carnival theme, unfortunately, is executed in a very juvenile way. I know that one can do it justice because I teach piano and I have been working with students on the Howl's Moving Castle theme, which is very carnival themed, and it's got much more nuance and a lot more depth and character to it than anything that Under the Circus Lights can present. Now, track 3, called Kelly Time, is about the movie Castaway. It's not my favorite movie, and I would have wished Adam would draw from something more original here, but I think it's fine. Now, despite Kelly Time's pretty generic chord structure, there's enough elaboration with the piano and the synth melodies on top of it that keep my ear interested for the whole song. And that's despite the key changes. Once again, we're here. We're going to be talking about this a lot, so, get ready for that. I would have much preferred, instead of having key changes that, once again, feel tacked on to the song, having unique chord structures for each section of the song, sort of mirroring the acts of the movie that the song is written about. Now, I've never been a fan of do-do-do lyrics, and this song is no exception. Every time it happens on this album, and all of his others, it makes me cringe to a certain degree. You can write lyrics there, Adam. I know you can. But Adam's performance on the song is pretty great. I really love those high notes that he ends up hitting. They're very lovely, and I love hearing him go up to the higher end of his register, as long as he keeps it beautiful. Track 4, titled Field Notes, actually has a guest vocalist on it. Someone who's going to be peppered throughout this album, as well as throughout his whole discography under Owl City, Brienne Duran. To me, these two vocally are a match made in heaven, and every song that features Brienne, I always see it as a positive. Field Notes has a lot of biblical references in it, and some of them I feel are tasteful, and some of them I feel are not. And on the topic of lyrics, I have to point out some of the more particularly egregious ones here. There's a couple of things more precious than gold. One is your heart, and the other's your soul. Really, Adam? Really? It's a fable, you see, and the moral is this. Now, you can say whatever you like about generally Owl City's lyrics, but this, in my mind, is a perfect example of what modern Owl City is getting completely wrong. We've transitioned entirely from that rose-tinted lens that Adam used to be writing from to totally transparent ones, where he's kind of hitting you upside the head with whatever sort of grand idea he wants to imbue inside you. And I'm sorry, but I just like that more nuanced approach to lyrics, as opposed to literally saying, here is what you need to think about this song. The next track, Sons of Thunder, is a very reference-laden track, like the We Are the Odd Music Makers from Ode by Arthur O'Shaughnessy. And I love the contrast between those gentle verses, where Adam is sort of weaving vocally in and out of this lovely sound, and as it grows up into those intense choruses with Brienne Duran complementing his voice up on those high registers. But unfortunately, we have hit what I like to call the Jesus Christ event horizon. Now, I'd like to directly contrast the lyrics of Sons of Thunder to the lyrics of Angels from All Things Bright and Beautiful.
Living closer to the ground in seventh heaven, 'cause there are angels all around. Among my frivolous thoughts, I believe there are beautiful things seen by the astronauts.
Now, Angel's lyrics are an allegory for seeing beauty in the things that we would otherwise take for granted here on Earth. At least that's how I've interpreted it over time. And I don't think that the biblical references here in Angels are just there to say God is good and wonderful. I think he's saying that life is beautiful if you open your eyes and take a look at the world around you in a more holistic sense. Now let's take a look at some of Son of Thunder's lyrics. So take heart, young one, for there is a God who loves you to death no matter what you've done. There is no interpretation and there is no thought required. Adam is stapling to your forehead every meaning of every lyric in every song in this album, and I hate it, man. It's as if Adam thinks that his whole audience is incapable of any sort of critical thinking. Now let's think about these lyrics from a religious perspective. Now, I once was a Christian, but I am no longer, and I think it's important to recognize that people in your audience are not a monolith. Not everyone who's engaging with your music in an earnest way is coming from the same lens that you are, Adam. And the more that you try and funnel them into that sort of lens, the more you're alienating them. We've hit the halfway point with Tornado, track 6, and it seems like this is the most popular track, although I really don't know why. Now, the instrumental interlude in this song is pretty pleasant, and it reminds me of Adam Young's self-titled works, which have all been orchestral works kind of relating to a specific event. Like the first one was Apollo 11. By the way, if you haven't listened to that album, I really recommend it. It's a wonderful listen. So that's a bit of a nice throwback to an earlier work of his, but that's about the only positive thing that I have to say about the whole song. Once again, we have these uninspired, literal lyrics. It feels like I'm up in a high chair and Adam is feeding me cookies. And frankly, I'm surprised, but Adam is recycling lyrics here from an earlier work on the album. Under the Circus Lights has the line, blinking back tears. Same with this song. The Tornado has what I believe to be the highest note Adam has ever achieved on one of his Owl City records. But the problem is, in contrast to one of those moments earlier in the album where I liked those high notes, this song is way outside his range. He cracks on it, it's not beautiful, and it really is hard to listen to. And despite this song being a very literal interpretation of someone trying to survive a tornado, Adam at the end tries to shoehorn in a larger point of trying to survive the storms of life. And that just doesn't work. Now, track 7, even though it has a very corny pun in the title and throughout the lyrics of vitamin C, it's actually one of the highlights of the album for me. It feels like a throwback to the Ocean Eyes era, especially in the instrumental, where it's still reminiscent of that, but still has new character to it with all of the things that Adam has learned through his production throughout the decades. And once again, Brianne Duran, lovely in accenting Adam's voice. Now, I've been very critical of the lyrics up to this point, but I do want to point out some lyrics that genuinely made me smile. I'll tell all my troubles to the ocean breeze, 'cause sitting on the beach is cheaper than therapy. That's classic Adam to me. It reminds me of the sense of wit on songs like Dental Care from Ocean Eyes. Now, despite all of the positive things I have to say about this song, the beginning, do-do-do-do-do, makes me want to claw my eyes out and never tell anybody ever again that I have been entrenched in Owl City for so long in my life. And I just have to mention these lyrics here. 'Cause when I get kinda salty, I need some vitamin C, so BRB. Really? References to happy as a clam, and especially aloha and mahalo, talking about Hawaii, are so mind-numbingly generic, it's just making my eyes roll. And the ending da-da-das are just as bad as the beginning do-do-dos. Now, track 8, Dinosaur Park, has probably the strongest individual moment on the whole album. Specifically, I'm talking about the breakdown, with those vocal and instrumental change-ups that really give more life to the song. Kind of reminds me of Adam Check Please, where he would vary the sound instead of just keeping on with the same structure throughout the whole song. And once again, these lyrics are inane. These old dinosaur sculptures that fill my heart with awe and intrigue. Okay, Adam, if that's true, let's see you write a song utilizing that awe and intrigue, instead of just plainly stating it to us. Now, I'd like to contrast these lyrics with one of Adam's other projects called Sky Sailing, and the song A Little Opera Goes a Long Way. In that, Adam clearly has been moved by going to the opera, and does more to elaborate on that than we see in this song in Coco Moon.
I'll save you an echo from the heart, and I'll paint you a dreamscape on your bedroom wall.
What this song showcases is Adam's ability to create vivid imagery in the minds of his listeners. Something that I think that he's lost the ability to do. I just love that MIDI saxophone breakdown. I'm not sure exactly what that instrument is, but it goes off for like 30-40 seconds, and I loved every second of it. It was so captivating to listen to. And I have a soft spot for MIDI instruments, so maybe I'm a little biased, but man, was that a highlight for me. And despite the lyrics on the song being very matter-of-fact still, thank goodness for the girl this song is written about, because her explanation of her tattoos on various parts of her body is basically the entire chorus of the song, and it's a lot more thought-provoking and imagery-inducing than anything we've seen up to this point. So whoever you are out there, whoever talked to Adam Young on the beach of Santa Cruz, thank you, because you're the best lyricist on this whole album, and you should get credit for this song. But still, it's a shame that Adam himself has lost the ability to think critically about his lyrics. And as we move into these last two tracks, I have nothing good to say anymore. These two songs really dropped the ball for me, and I'll tell you why. And once again, Meadowlark has a bunch of key changes that are totally extraneous, don't need to be there. It just feels like Adam didn't want to write the rest of the song, so he's like, okay, I'll just keep looping this one section and go from E flat major to F major. I don't know exactly what the keys are in this song, but it just feels unnecessary. Coco Moon, in its totality, is about an hour long, and if that's true, we're right at the end of that. And at this point in my listening experience, I need to hear something more varied in terms of chord progression. I just can't keep listening to these same sort of structures over and over again. If these were singles, it would be much more palatable, but it's an album. I listen to albums from the beginning to the end, the way that they're meant to be listened to. And I am bored to tears at this point of these simple chord progressions. And of course God is here, because there's no way two people pointing guns at each other on a battlefield could feel some emotion by having a bunch of meadowlarks fly up in between them and remind them of their shared humanity. Oh, no. They couldn't do that naturally. They had to have God directly beam those ideas into their heads. Very good message, Adam. And a lot of my criticisms from the meadowlark transfer over into the last song on the album, My Muse. It's another 4-1-5 chord progression, and it has key changes. Lord in heaven. You know, I've listened to this album a dozen, maybe a dozen and a half times in different contexts, and I've finally come to the realization that I think Adam doesn't want to make music anymore. What he really wants to do is make stories about his life that rhyme. Like, he wants to write a rhyming book. Any energy that this album could have had is completely gone. It is totally static. And I get this song is supposed to be Adam saying to his audience, hey, you know my partner? We're getting married, isn't that nice? But couldn't you have done it in a less boring way? And like I said before, maybe in a different context as a single, this song would have more weight to it. But after 50 minutes of constant barragement of lackluster songs, I just can't take it anymore. Even if this is the most important song on the album, I can't take it seriously. And frankly, I'm surprised that this song doesn't have God in it anywhere. Like, Adam, are you really saying to your audience that you and your partner locking eyes in that movie theater and starting a relationship from there, that was all from you? That had nothing to do with God, any outside influence whatsoever? You've clearly shown your audience at this point that you see God in everything. But no. Your relationship, that was you. You did that, not God. I'm surprised. So, that's the album. That's Coco Moon. And although there are certain things that I do like about it, there are little standout spots here and there, it is marred by all of these questionable decisions throughout the entirety of the project. And not even just this project, really that whole new era of Owl City, starting with Mobile Orchestra. I've been asking myself the same questions ever since then. And it's a shame. You know, Adam made statements about Coco Moon saying that he wasn't manipulated by anybody into going to certain directions. This is entirely his vision, his sound. It was everything he wanted it to be. And those words really made me excited that I was going to get a new era of Owl City, reminiscent of the old, but with new ideas and, again, that new experience, coloring him in a slightly different way. But instead, we get more of this generic crap. And before we go, I actually have a special treat for you. Now, I'm surprised that nobody else reviewing this album has done this before, but I actually went and found the Coco Moon. So tell me, Guy, what do you think of this album? That's what I thought.